Hello, everybody, and welcome to Chapter Select, a seasonal podcast where we bounce back and forth between a series of games exploring their evolution, design, and legacy. For this season 3E, we are covering the Banjo-Kazooie series. My name is Max Roberts, and I am joined, as always, by Logan Moore. Hi, Logan.
Ekum bokum. Hello.
Is that the correct way to greet someone in the world
I don't know.
of Spiral Mountain?
I didn't want to say guh, even though I guess I've now said guh. There's a lot of good sound effects in the Banjo games. But yes, hi. We're doing Banjo. We've done, I don't know if we did this intentionally when we set this up, but we've now done a Nintendo exclusive series, a PlayStation exclusive series, and now we're giving Xbox some love with season 3.
We didn't. That was not a part of the decision process, but technically it's a Nintendo and an Xbox video game.
Yeah, but Phil Spencer owns it now, and he's locked away
the
bear and the bird in a cage where they can't escape.
So up there with Master Chief and
Master
who's the
Chief's
person
been
in
let
Perfect
loose.
Dark?
Joanna something, or it might just be Joanna Dark or something. I don't know. I've never played those games.
So there we go. It's they own all of Rare, and so for this first episode of the season, like I said at the top, we bounce back and forth between the games throughout the entire season. So this episode 1 is Banjo-Kazooie, the first game in this series, but our second episode is going to be Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, followed by Banjo-Tooie, and then wrapping the whole season up, we are going to be playing the Game Boy Advance game, also developed by Rare, Banjo-Kazooie Grunty's Revenge. Logan was very adamant about not playing the other Banjo game for Game Boy Advance, Banjo Pilot. He was adamant about doing that.
I don't think we could get a full episode out of that. It's just
but we could
Game
do
Boy
it with Grunty's Revenge.
Maybe we'll look into it. I mean, obviously, at the time we're recording this, we haven't solely locked in our plans for the coming episodes. We've only got this episode squared away right now, so maybe we can. I just know that I had to pay a pretty penny to get Grunty's Revenge on its own. So if Banjo Pilot,
in the year of our Lord 2022,
yeah. So if Banjo Pilot, a physical version of that game, is anything close to being the same price for Game Boy Advance nowadays, maybe we skip it. 'Cause I don't know. There's a whole discussion to be had about that one, but I'm gonna guess there's not a lot to say about that game.
I definitely don't own Banjo Pilot. I do own Grunty's Revenge. Just out of simple curiosity, looked it up. Banjo Pilot, pretty much up until 2019, early 2020, was coasting around $11 to $15, and then
that's not bad. Then.
Within the last year and a half, it's gone up to $40.
Okay, well then never mind. What man? Why is
I don't understand
everything so expensive right now?
It is a lot of. It's a lot. A complete boxed copy of the game is over $170. People are nuts. That's all I'm going to say.
Nuts and bolts is what people are.
And that'll be our next episode. So, but for this particular episode, just focusing on the first game, Banjo-Kazooie, it was developed by Rare in arguably their golden age on the N64, coming off of the Super Nintendo with Donkey Kong Country.
I don't think that's an argument, really. I mean, well, I guess you could say the Super Nintendo stuff they made was pretty noteworthy too, with the Donkey Kong Country games.
I think they've re-entered a really good period of time with Sea of Thieves. I know some of the games they're working on now, I think one of them was straight up canceled. So it is a little bit...
I think it just are you talking about Everwild? I think that's what it's called. I think it's just got totally rebooted internally. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So the golden age of Rare, arguably SNES, N64, undoubtedly. They definitely were cranking them out. Plenty of games besides Banjo. But like I said, N64, Nintendo 64, and the Xbox 360, which happened in 2008. So it came out on the Nintendo 64 on June 29th of 1998. Logan and I were a whopping 4 years old. I think your birthday is a day before, if not. Yeah.
It would have been a week before. Yeah.
A week before. Yes, that's right.
22nd.
So, we're very young. I never owned it, but Logan did. And then it came out for the 360 in November 26th of 2008. So this was after the Microsoft acquisition. And then they ported those over to Xbox Live Arcade, both Kazooie and Tooie, right before Nuts and Bolts came out, actually. Yeah. So it was a way to get all of those games on there.
And then it eventually came to, I mean, we don't have this down, but came to Rare Replay eventually, which was still the 360 versions. They're just forward compatible on that same hardware. So, I mean, the version of the game's not different. I mean, we played it. I mean, we talk about this, but I played on Series X. Still the same version of the game, a little nicer though, but it is available on a number of different platforms, even though the 360 version is the main one.
And, now on Series X, it's like 4K HDR, well beyond the scope of the original Nintendo 64. It's actually pretty wild. The game directors, Greg Males,
I think.
Greg Males and George Andreas. The producers were Tim and Chris Stamper. And then the music, the famous music, done by Grant Kirkhope. It got a 92 out of 100 on Metacritic for the Nintendo 64 version back in 98. And then the Xbox 360 ports in 2008, those were given a 77. One of the things I didn't look up was what Rare Replay got, which isn't necessarily reflective of just Banjo.
Rare Replay got an 84 out of 100.
There you go. And granted, this includes almost the entirety of Rare's back catalog. I think only missing probably was
anything licensed. I think.
Yeah, so GoldenEye and then Donkey Kong 64.
Yeah.
And maybe there's something else that slipped through the cracks I'm not aware of. But anyway, that's kind of the standing of where Banjo has been. And really, we haven't gotten a Banjo-Kazooie game since 2008. So
very relevant podcast season we're doing here.
Yes. I mean, honestly, Banjo's most recent appearance is Super Smash Bros. Ultimate on the Nintendo Switch. So the bear and the bird are still alive. People love them. I have an amiibo right over there. But
I mean, there was a big deal when the game came to Switch Online too. So
yes, which just happened
within
maybe
the past
a month or so
months.
ago. Yeah. So, but to move forward with our discussion here about Banjo and Kazooie, Logan and I have a guest with us for this inaugural episode. Inaugural is not the right word, but the kickoff to season 3 here. We have a guest with us to talk about the rest of the game. And now to welcome our guest to the show for this very special episode, Michael Kazwara. Welcome to Chapter Select.
Hi, thank you for inviting me. I'm very excited to talk about Banjo.
Well, thank you for agreeing to play this game with us. I don't think, though, that was necessarily too tough of an ask because of how much you love Banjo-Kazooie. Would that be correct?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I'm basically replaying this game. Anytime you ask me, I'm in the process of playing this game again. So it was no problem at all.
Yeah, you were the first person that came to mind when we agreed on Banjo. Logan had the idea. Let's play Banjo for season 3 or season 3E, as we've been calling it. You were the first person that came to mind for Kazooie. So thank you for joining us. Why don't you tell the people a little bit about your experiences with Banjo-Kazooie and like why you came to mind for me? Because I think if anyone follows your work, they know why I chose you. So
sure. I mean, outside just my undying love for this game, I love this game so much. It doesn't make sense most of the time how much I love this game, but because I'm so attached to this series and this particular original first game, I have ventured off into the deeper side of the community where people are modding the game, where people are creating their own levels and actually making them playable in the original game. And I've more than dabbled in that, and I've created my own stuff, and I'm still creating my own stuff, and people watch me stream as I make levels and stuff. It's a whole thing. Banjo is involved in my life constantly. It just never ends, and And frankly, I'm happy. I'm glad about it.
I mean, I was going to ask you that. Like, I'm somebody who I think gets tired of games the more I spend time around them. Like, is it the total opposite for you then? Like, to just have this one thing that you're always kind of playing or maybe tooling around with in the background?
I like that question a lot, because there are moments where I wonder, do I actually like this so much, like as much as I do, because it's just constantly there. But every so often, like, oh dang, yeah, this game's really good. I remember why I like it so much. That said, I don't get nostalgic about this game. There's nothing nostalgic about it anymore. The experiences around the game are nostalgic. I remember when we first got it for Christmas, when we played it on the specific day in the specific place. That stuff's nostalgic. But when I see the actual gameplay, screenshot, characters, whatever, it's not nostalgic, because it's a very much a active part of my life.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Yeah, and that sucks, because I do like to look at old games and get that feeling of like, oh yeah, like I remember playing this. I remember this moment and stuff about the game itself, not the stuff around it. So it's unfortunate, but an okay trade-off.
I mean, that's fine. I mean, I'll jump in here, Max, because I know you're going to ask me about my history with the game. And mine is 100% just a nostalgia shot in the arm. This was, for me, this was literally the first game I got with my Nintendo 64. Whenever I got it, it was either 98 or 99. I want to say it was Christmas 98 is what I'm thinking. Because this game came out in the summer, and I had seen it on store shelves for a long time, and I was always like, I want that game with the bear up there. And they're like, well, we don't own that console, so we can't play that. And eventually somebody in my family got it for the Nintendo 64 for me, and my parents got me Banjo with it, and that was the first game I had. So, yeah, this is like just more so than any other game from that era. This is 100% just a pure nostalgia trip for me. Every time I think about this game or go back to it, it's hard for me to, I mean, obviously we'll talk about how we feel about the game nowadays as the show proceeds here, but it's almost hard for me to separate my feelings on this game from the 5-year-old version of me that is still somewhere in me to this day and is just like, I like this game with the bear and the bird in it. This game makes me happy. I like this game. It's silly. So yeah, like that, I have so many memories of this game just from being a kid and trying to beat it. And I told Max, the funny thing is when I started playing it this time, I was like, in my head, this game is very long, because when I was a kid, I was, 4 or 5 the first time I played this, and I didn't know how to play video games all that great when I was a kid. So it took me months and months and months and months to, get to these levels. Like every time I'd get to a new level, it would take me like a month of progress in the game until I finally got there. So yeah, there's no telling how many hours I poured into this as a kid, but never actually beat it until the 360 port came out. I guess that would be when I finally, when I was a teenager, I was like, oh, they ported this to Xbox Live Arcade. I guess I'll play this now and maybe actually try to beat it as I'm in high school. And at some point or another, I did that. But yeah, this game is very much tied to my childhood, so it's hard for me to think of it in any other way.
And for me, this game wasn't actually a part of my childhood. It was always the N64 game that kind of, one of many, that got away, that I never ever really played. The kids across the street, they had Banjo-Tooie. So I was aware of Banjo and played a lot of Tooie at their house. But Kazooie was never really in my life. And then I didn't have a 360, so I never bought the Xbox port. And so when I got an Xbox One, it came with Rare Replay bundled in, but my brain was like, this is an N64 game. I can't play this with an Xbox gamepad. This is weird. Give me my 3-pronged controller, let me play with that. And so I just never really played it. And now, ironically, we play it for the show. I play it on Xbox because it's the most convenient. It's certainly the prettiest, and it makes capture way, way easier. That's also right when Nintendo and Microsoft put it on Nintendo Switch Online, the N64 version. So was kind of ironic that I waited all this time to play on an N64, and then I never actually did because just priorities changed. And I had fun with it. It was kind of cool to see a game that really I should have played back in early 2000, the late 90s, early 2000, but come to it as like it's not a stranger, I guess more an acquaintance. Like I know Banjo and Kazooie. I played Grunty's Revenge on my Game Boy as a kid. That was the game, one of the games that I just really sunk a lot of time into. I was familiar with these characters, but never familiar with their origin. And so it was cool to see that for the first time now in 2022 in 4K HDR at 60 frames a second. This is a weird alternate world where, even though it's not alternate, where Banjo survived for the past 20 years. It was cool to see it like that.
Before we get too much further, I am curious for you, Michael. Have you played like every version of this game over the years, starting with N64 and then Xbox 360 and then whatever I guess it would have just been the 360 version that was included in Rare Replay, but then now there's like the Series X version that's kind of more enhanced or whatever. It looks very pretty, actually. That's where I played it this time around. How many platforms have you played this on?
I'm pretty sure I've at least tried it on every place it's been released. Essentially, there's two versions: the N64 one and the Xbox Arcade one. Mm-hmm. The other ones, they're all the same, basically. So I've obviously played the original. I remember when it first came out on Arcade, we were borrowing a 360 at the time. Oh, no. My brother would fix the Red Ring of Death. No. Was it that? I don't know. He'd fix some problem that people would have, buy them cheap, fix it. We'd have it for like a few weeks and then sell it. So we had it during that time when Banjo was released. So we played some multiplayer on TUI and messed around with it. Then I replayed it when it came out on Rare Replay. And for the N64 version on Switch, I played it for an hour, got through 2 worlds, and said, "Yep, this is the game. This is the same one. It's all good still."
So then, Michael, as kind of the expert within our little group here, which version is better? The N64 version or the Xbox Live Arcade version?
I would say the Xbox Live Arcade version is better. If you really want the challenge and like the fear of losing your note progress, you should probably play the N64 version. That does add a good amount of challenge.
Hold on, wait. You lose all your notes?
Well, you don't lose all your notes. Let's say you go into Rusty Bucket Bay, you get 99 notes, and you die. Well, you have to go back and you have to collect them all again and the missing one for it to count.
Oh, so, no. I would definitely... Yeah. There's no way I would have got all 900 notes this time around.
I was going to say, the Rare Replay version does not do that then, does it? Or did they change it at some point? Because that
I definitely died.
Yeah, that definitely didn't happen in my version of it playing on Xbox this time. So maybe they changed something along the lines.
It should only be the N64 version that does not count them.
That sounds like a modern enhancement.
Like, you said it's
the 360 would have provided.
I got you.
That's pretty wild.
Then I guess there's also like achievements. Sure, why not?
Sure.
Did you get all of them, Max?
No, I didn't. I did not find the honeycombs. I need to find this Cheeto one more time. So it was that, and I feel like there's a third achievement I didn't get. But that was it. The honeycombs were really what I didn't find all of. Those are hidden pretty well. And where they are hidden is in all of the worlds, because there's a lot of different levels and a lot of different worlds within Banjo-Kazooie. And I'll be honest, with my experience of TUI, this was not the layout of like the world and how it's connected that I was expecting. And now I really understand a lot of comparisons to Super Mario 64.
Yeah.
I really get that now. Because they both take place in a pretty much a single structure that then has all these worlds within it, a hub world.
Now you understand the holy war I've been waging over the years.
I suppose. I don't know if we don't need to touch on said holy war at the time.
I mean, long story short, I think this game's better than Mario 64, and I'm very loud about that fact. So
I was just waiting to hear which side you were on.
Which side of the war? And I assume Michael is on the Banjo side as well.
It would appear so. Yes.
I'll be Switzerland. I'll be neutral in this war, especially considering I've only played. I just finished Banjo like an hour ago.
Yeah, within the past hour, you finished it for the first time.
As of recording. But all in all, there are, let's see, I got to count it out. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 total worlds or levels in Banjo-Kazooie.
Sort of.
Well, Gruntilda's Lair is like the hub, so, does that count? Does Spiral Mountain really count?
It's like a tutorial zone, yeah.
Yeah, so I guess you take that away, then you have 9 total worlds with 10 jigsaws, not jiggies. Jigsaws. I thought they would be called jiggies, but apparently that's introduced in Tooie. They give them the cute name.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't know that. So I've been calling them the wrong thing my entire life, apparently, at least in the context of the first game. And I think to kind of guide us through all these worlds, Logan had the idea, and I think it's a pretty fun one. He wanted to rank them.
This is something I to make this clear up front, this is something I would like to do over the course of the whole season. So this isn't just I don't know how that'll apply to Grunty's Revenge really, but this is something I would like to do in the 3 mainline games that I think we should do with all of our different guests on those episodes.
And I'm totally down for that. So I guess, do you want to I think figure out what the bottom is and work our way up?
Oh, I'm curious, like, obviously we just can't go, oh, this one's the worst, like, as a group, because I found out last night, just through a brief conversation with Max, that the levels that I think are the best in this game, he thinks are the worst. So we're already coming at this from very different angles. Again, as Banjo expert here amongst the group, I'm curious to hear, like, what your knee-jerk reaction would be to, like, some of the ones that you think are top tier, and then which ones you think are... I wouldn't say there's a horrible level in this game in this game, but there are some that I definitely don't like compared to the others.
Sure.
I guess how what would your own hierarchy look like here? And we can.
Do you want to hear mine first? I don't want to.
No, I mean you
give
can.
you the definitive list here, and then...
No, I don't think we need it. We don't need to make it definitive and speak for the rest of forever with Banjo, but I think it'd be fun to try to figure out how we feel about them here. But yeah, I guess to start off, what would you think is the worst? I'm curious. I'm more curious about that than what you would think is the best, honestly.
Sure. And like you were saying, I don't think there's any that I think are bad. I would say that the one that is just kind of good / okay, I would say Clanker's Cavern.
Yeah.
Yeah. Water levels.
Water levels from the 90s.
Not always the best.
Water levels from the 90s.
Clanker's Cavern is one I would put near the bottom as well, personally. I assume Max kind of mentioned to me that he did not like that level, so I assume he's kind of...
Yeah, no, that's toward the bottom as well.
Ooh, I don't know what to say after this. It's just that one that's kind of like...
I'll chime in and say, I don't like Rusty Bucket Bay, personally. That's never been a favorite. It's kind of, again, very... it's got a lot of water in it once again, which is a through line with why I don't really care for it. I think it's lacking a lot of personality and unique characters that some of the other levels have, which is another one of my issues with it. There's really only the dolphin that is like the side character in this level, and then I guess the TNT box, or not the TNT box, but just the box boss in general.
So creative.
Yeah. And then it's got the most annoying Jiggy in the whole game, in my opinion, which is the one behind the propeller, which I hate that one.
Always got to do it first, though. Always first.
Dude, it is literally, so in this current playthrough, I got 899 notes and I got 99 Jiggies, and that was the one Jiggy that I just decided to not go back and get. It was Rusty Bucket Bay. I was like, I don't feel like dealing with this one right now. I'm just gonna keep going. And I would say that one's near the bottom. I don't know where you're at on that, Max, or what either of you think about that personally.
Rusty Bucket Bay is so it's like a water level that doesn't want to be a water level. Almost everything is outside of the water, and the water is only a means to get there occasionally. Like, to free the dolphin, you have to swim, but you just go up through where the anchor drops, fix the problem inside, and come out. The propeller, you got to do the maze, hit the switches inside, and then swim to get that. Most of the Jinjos are out of the water. More Jiggies are on the boats and the crane. None of it really is happening in the water. But it makes it very difficult to get around. It's to go from one side to the other. You're either crossing over the ship or swimming and hopping on. It almost feels artificially lengthened. Like travel, like navigation is long and hard compared to previous levels. At least it's like a hike to get where you want to go, and it's because there's a big boat in the middle and water surrounding it. And wherever you want to go, it either costs a bunch of eggs, which I may or may not have used all on the box because I thought that's how you hit the box. So then I couldn't afford the tolls.
Why are the tolls are just a weird thing that is chucked in this level as well? I think like it does. I don't know. Like there's no real point to it other than just making you do that.
Yeah, I guess that's true. It might also just be, hey, look, we're making this 3D platformer. Look at these cool things we can do in 1998. I don't know. I think it might just be a case of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just feels artificially like travel inflated. If you want to get here, you have to be very careful not to fall in the water, which also happens to take 2 air bubbles or take your air twice as fast.
Yeah.
Which is also not super fun.
But there are some good things about this level.
Sure.
And I will say about the whole distance travel thing, it would be beneficial if there were more points on the ship that branch out to the different sections. So you have your little central area and move out. That does kind of break that travel thing that the game wanted you to do.
Yeah.
I guess they were just trying to do something different. Whether you like it or not, I don't know if it's necessarily bad design. It's just a different way to play this game, and it may not have worked as well as they thought. The music, an absolute banger. Okay, this is a great theme. I want to play this level just to hear the soundtrack. It's great. I guess I don't have all good things to say about this level because there are some things I don't like the most about games in general, and some things about Banjo-Kazooie are the things that are unfair. There's one Jiggy in particular, not the super challenging one, the one where you have to break a window to get into the captain's quarter or something, and there's a Jiggy in there. How are you supposed to know that? But you just randomly hit a window. I mean, obviously the texture is different, but like when you're a kid, you're not looking at windows and saying, well, that one's...
But it's only like slightly different too. Like it's very close to what the other ones are, I think. Because usually in or some of the other windows in this game, I think are pretty well like
the Haunted Mansion.
Yeah, like
or
those
Monster Mansion. Yes,
Mad Monster Mansion. Yeah, like I feel like those are kind of like telling you, hey, you should hit this.
At least those are 3-dimensional. Like you can see inside past the window. With this one, it's a flat texture, and the only reason it looks different is because it's a separate texture. The others are not. They're part of that ship texture. That's the only reason it's different. And stuff like that, that's not... I would say that is bad design. That's not good. If they added another character, maybe give this world some more life, add a character that talks about their cabin over there somewhere, if you can find it. I don't know. Something like that. But that wasn't there. So, bad.
Yes. I wholeheartedly agree.
The other thing I wanted to bring up with this, and I don't know if this was just, I don't know if Michael would share this sentiment, because he's played this game so much, but I think the way you unlock this level is a little bit more obtuse than some of the other ones, with how you have to do the rising water levels and stuff like that, and you have to find both of the switches before you can then access and it's also rare that you find the entryway for Rusty Bucket Bay before you find the jigsaw puzzle, because I feel like a lot of times you find the jigsaw puzzle before you actually find the entrance for a lot of the levels in this game. This one, it's in the reverse. Like, you will straight up pass where Rusty Bucket Bay is going to be, and then the puzzle that you have to solve is past it or above it or whatever, which I think is different, because it made me, this time around, I almost forgot, like, did I miss something? Was it in another area? Because it's been like 10 years since I played this game, and so I was like tripping myself up trying to remember that.
So actually, I think that does happen earlier too. You pass Gobi's Valley.
Click Clock Woods is the other one too, but there's like that one's kind of like unique, I feel like. And
well, that one's like, you just came to the Jigsaw place super early.
Yeah.
And I actually love that. I love the idea that, like, oh dang, there's this really hard one to complete, and like, you just know it for the future that something was there. It's like it's a well-earned thing to remember, I guess. You finally make it to the Click Clock Wood area, and you're like, wait, where's the Jigsaw thing? And oh yeah, there was that one place a long time ago. Although that's not necessarily true, because there's a switch and then it shows you exactly where it is.
And then you got to backtrack to get them back there.
Right. It's kind of I guess what people would refer like a Metroidvania kind of moment, or a Zelda moment. It's like, oh, this item now unlocks this thing or whatever. But this is, oh, I have found the doorway to the level, and the Jigsaw puzzle is all the way at the beginning. Like, I remember that. This is cool. The music comes in too, right? When you go to that puzzle in the beginning, and it's really good. You remember it, and then you find this area, and it comes back, and it digs it back up, hopefully.
And I think that's why I love Gruntilda's Lair so much, because of moments like everything that we just talked about. Even you said it in a negative way. I actually love that kind of stuff.
I totally do too. I didn't mean it in a negative way. It was more just like, you do feel a little bit more lost, I feel like, when trying to find this one, which again isn't a bad thing, because it makes you try to, go explore the castle a little bit more. Where have I been? Yeah. What have I seen already? What are some avenues that I can now access that maybe I couldn't have accessed before? Things like that.
I think an early example of this, at least in my case, this did not happen to either of you this time around. I know this for sure. But after, I guess, Mumbo's Mountain and Treasure Trove Cove, the game pretty guide you to those two fairly easy. I'm like, oh, well, this is going to be a very linear thing. It will just walk me to the next puzzle and I'll go on. But then I couldn't figure out where Clanker's Cavern is. And I think that's very intentional, because where did I go? I went in the water and swam in the hole I saw. And what did I find? The Click Clock Wood puzzle, which they want you to find early on. And then I think I go in the sewer pipe, but it doesn't lead to the thing. The entrance is above the sewer pipe. And early I was like, where? I'm running around trying to find the next thing, and I finally just jumped onto the pipe and found. I was like, okay, now I know where to go. And they do this throughout the rest of Gruntilda's Lair, and I think at least Michael and I will specifically touch on one a little later when we get to some other worlds. But that, I think, is an early example of that, showing you that there's more to this than just A, B, C, D, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, you're supposed to. It is really about exploration. They really do want you to explore every nook and cranny, And I like that it becomes a little bit more of a challenge, just in the later segments of the game. And it's really hard to talk about what's difficult and what's not, because I know this game so well now. Yeah. What was actually difficult for me when I first played? It's hard to remember.
What was funny about my replay of it this time was that anytime I was having a hard enough time, I found that if I just sat and like paused the game and just thought for a second, I would quickly remember. I was like, I'm trying to dig through the files in my brain and pull out the files and that I've got all the Banjo-Kazooie strats tucked away in somewhere. Because I used to have the I told Max this the other day, because I strangely saw it at a store. I used to have the pro guide or whatever for this when I was a kid. Yeah. And so I read that book, or maybe not like I actually read it, but I thumbed through that thing and looked at all the pictures and stuff in it more times than I actually beat the game or whatever. So I have all of those images still somewhere in my head to this day.
I love that. And I'd believe you if you said you actually read the book. For sure.
No, I just looked at the pictures as a kid, for sure. The one other thing I want to say about Rusty Bucket before we move on, and this isn't even a discussion with that level specifically, but more about the game in general. The reason I hate the one jiggy behind the rudder is because it's timed. But the time in this game is not accurate. It is moving at like 1.5 times speed, right? Like I'm not out of my mind, right? Like they give you like 60 to 70 seconds to get to that one on the back of the rudder, and it feels like it's like 40 maybe or so, something around there. Because there's no way that like I haven't actually tried to line it up with. I should have actually tried to line it up with a timer on my phone or something like that. But there's no way that is a second by second countdown on the timers in this game.
So I can't confirm if you're right, but you saying this it feels familiar. Like I've checked before. So I think something is off, and it is. You're probably right. I think that's the answer. You are probably right.
I mean, I don't. Maybe it's not as much of a gap as like I said, like 1.5 times the speed or something like that.
1.5,
yeah, but it feels like it's faster than it should be. And again,
the power of the Xbox is just too much. All those teraflops are running the clocks way too fast.
Yeah, the Xbox port's bad, it turns out. No, but I mean, again, I should actually try to test that, but yeah, anything that's timed in this game, I feel that way about, and that one is the most apparent to me because I just hate that jiggy. But I feel the same way about any of the time situations in the game. So yeah.
So what would we dub next? So it was just kind of the flow here.
I wanted to pose that we try to go to the top now because personally, I have a hard time separating the middle pack of this game. There are like a bunch of levels that I think are on pretty equal footing, and I'm curious what you guys think are near the top instead.
I appreciate you taking a chapter select style approach to our discussion of these worlds.
Going back and forth, yeah. Personally speaking, and this is the one that I said I know Max and I differ on, and he can maybe explain his reasoning here. I think Click Clock Wood is the best world in the game, personally. I think it is one of the most unique platforming worlds ever. I know it is just recycling the same environment 4 times over, and maybe that's what Max's problem is with it, but I think the entire format and evolution of that world is more unique than anything a lot of platformers have ever done. I love it. I think that level is phenomenal from front to back. And it's one of the more expansive ones in the whole game, and I think you really get a little bit more time to breathe in that world and kind of maybe not root around and figure things out, but I don't know. I just like that I like that it's small and intimate like a lot of the other levels in the game, but it's always changing, and you're trying to figure out what is changing from season to season and stuff like that, and I think that's really cool.
I would agree. Click Clock Wood is in my top 3. I think it's battling for second place. With another one. Everything you said, completely agree. It's got a very unique idea, and I think it executes it very well. One thing to remember about most platforming levels, not just Banjo-Kazooie, but Banjo-Kazooie especially, is that there's usually a center focus, a center something that the player will either be drawn to most of the time or just kind of always be aware of and drawn to, right? So in Click Clock Wood, it's just the base of the tree, just going up, spiraling across, and it's a simple thing to do, but there's always something different to do each time, and you get to see how it changes and evolves, and it's actually like the theme, the changing of seasons. You get to see how the level change. It's a great concept. And again, the music is so good.
The music is great. It's one of my favorite level songs.
Absolutely. For sure. Yeah. Very, very good. And it's the last level. This is like a great way to say, hey, you made it to the end. You made it through Rusty Bucket Bay. Have Click Clock Wood. Congrats.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good pacing.
Max, what is your... I mean, I alluded to it. You don't like this level as much, but I'm curious what your reasoning is for.
What is your wrong opinion here?
Yes. to be fair, going into this, I knew about the existence of Click Clock Wood and that it was a level that changed with the seasons. I wasn't entirely sure of the mechanic of it. I thought it was actually like you would push a button or maybe like an Oracle of Seasons type thing where you could just kind of wave a wand and it would change seasons. When you say that out loud and you think about
You
it,
thought they were going to give Banjo a wand in this level. All right.
I was the N64 would not do that. I don't think that would have been possible. So I wasn't familiar with how it worked. I just knew that the level existed and that people liked it. So that possibly has set some form of expectation over the past some 20 odd years or so. But I think Banjo is 20, right? It was
anyway. It's almost 20. It's 24 now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, it's going on 24, I should say.
I agree with the theme. I really do like the seasons and changing and seeing it change overall. But my big beef is it is all padding. All it is go up the tree, kill the same birds, and get to the top to get a Jiggy. And usually there's one more Jiggy on the way. And it's either the bees or I think the house has one. Yeah, the house has one. So all that changes is where the Jiggy is on the way up and I guess stairs. So you get more stairs the further into the season you go. And maybe this is because I am not familiar with Banjo and the platforming, but I have footage of it. The amount of times I fell from this tree. And it's not like
you sound like me as a kid.
Only 2 seasons have water, so it's not like I'm landing and surviving. I'm dying and starting all over again. Was way too much, and there is player error for sure. Because I swear to God, those leaves really none of the edge of the leaf counts. It's just one little dot in the middle you can land on.
Did you have trouble jumping out and then back in? To the holes in the tree. That was
okay. I think I only fell from that once. It was like backflipping onto leaves or the wood planks or landing on that weird bridge that should not be floating at all. I don't know how those bridges are supported, where the structure is for that at all. But I really struggled climbing the tree. And the whole point of the level is to climb the tree. And, the bee in spring is great because you can just fly. But then Mumbo takes a big fat vacation for the other 3, essentially. And I think part of that is also, I was going to bring this up with you off air, Logan, but I think it's applicable here. Like technically the last one I got was the flower because I needed to go back and get enough for the red honeycombs. But the last jigsaw that I got in Click Clock Wood was the beaver. And the beaver, the solution is obvious from the first time you meet him, get rid of the rock. And you can clearly do so in summer. It was easy. But you can't go up in his house. I'm like, well, I guess that's in the next season or whatever. And I get to the fall and I'm exploring the fall area and I died. And my brain wasn't thinking that everything has reset now. So I go see the beaver and the rocks there. I'm like, well, where's the permanence in this? What is the point of this? So my brain just thought you had to figure out how to do it in summer. And the only thing that was staying consistent was the bird, I guess, the big eagle. But yeah, that tree, I just did not like climbing it. I was very frustrated with the tree and climbing up it and those dumb birds that poke their head out and hit you. I'm not a fan of them, even though they're just the lizard creature thing reskinned as a bird. Yeah, I was not a fan of... Oh, and those dumb snowmen show their heads up in winter. And
of course
the flying to hit them is the only way to kill them. At least in my understanding, it's the only way to kill them. The snowmen can go away, and they can build some stairs on that tree. I don't know.
Well, so I think all right, you make a good point. I can see how some of it can be considered padding.
Because you do have to do it 4 times if you don't fall.
3, really, because winter you can just fly everywhere. So it's like, does that really count?
If you can kill the snowmen and not keep getting hit by them, sure.
I think just going back to talking about the evolution of the stage, I think that's what makes less padding and more like
Discovery.
Discovery, because you have everything that changes the squirrel, the beehive, the eagle, the even some of the paths change. So they're at the beginning in spring. You have, like, I guess you could call it the little bud of a leaf. I don't think that's a thing, but the leaf is very small, and you can kind of use it to go up, but you shouldn't. You should just go the normal way. But then as time goes on, you can now start using those leaves. You have a new path. So I think one way that this level could have been improved is just more dramatic changes in the paths. Instead of having that wooden path that keeps getting broken up, just make a new alternate path somewhere else, doing something completely different.
Yeah, not literally retread the same ground over and over.
Fall does that a little bit with the addition of the leaves piles, but that's about it.
Yeah,
I guess.
Fall makes it very easy to get around. I actually like those leaf piles because you can get up to the tree and other areas surrounding it very quickly. I like fall. Fall is my favorite of the four.
I think so too. For me, fall, beautiful.
Yes, it's very, very good looking.
Okay, so we're gonna have to debate that one. Its placement later. If we're agreeing that Clinker's Cavern and Rusty Bucket are the bottom, we'll figure out the others. Michael, I guess if you have a clear number one, what is it? Because you said Click Clockwood would only be fighting for second or third for you.
Yeah, my favorite would be Treasure Trove Cove.
This is the correct answer.
Okay, so then this is our number one, because Treasure Trove Cove is my second favorite, I think, behind Click Clockwood.
Treasure Trove Cove is the best level in the game. That is a fact.
Why do you think that?
Because the music slaps.
The music is the best in probably.
It also feels like an open world. I think it's I love the structure of it. The way that you get the flying ability, and then you can fly under the cove, and there's a lighthouse at the tippy top, and then there's the giant snail turtle thing,
hermit crab,
which I didn't realize you could just hit. I thought you had to like destroy the shell some way. I was like, how do I kill him? I can't get close to him. Apparently, you just peck his face after he clips a few times. It just seems like there were so many different things. You have to figure out how to get the water to go down to open up the little sandcastle with the floor puzzle. You chase treasure around. I think they use the space really well, and it truly feels like an open exploratory space.
And I think it's the perfect world to give players after you did your you did your Spiral Mountain, your tutorial. You did Mumbo's Mountain, which is your first world, but it's pretty easy. And now Treasure Trove Cove, not only do you have something that looks great, sounds great, is interesting, and is great for exploration. Well, I guess that's my point. Those three things, and then it's really great at showing you, look how you can explore. Look at all the different things you can do. Look at all these new moves. This is where you get both your pads. This is where you learn the jumping and the flying. And like you said, flying around. Oh, look, there's a lighthouse. Obviously, you're in a platform where you want to go to the top of the hill. You can. There's a lighthouse. Great. Just all these little touches about this world make it a very good second world. The only thing I don't like is the one honeycomb on a crate out in the distance on the water. They may have changed this in the Xbox version, but the draw distance on the N64 was very bad. You had to be basically almost in the water to see that empty honeycomb pop up, which is bad.
Yes.
You would never find it unless you were just in that area. That's it.
I can say the draw distance in the Xbox Series X, at least, I can't speak for the 360, is almost like you just see the entire world, which I realized was an advantage of modern hardware. Like, I could see, there's an item spinning over there that I want, like, make a mental note, go get that later. But in the N64, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I assume the fog is used. There's just a haze or something in the distance, or there's just pop-in as you approach
It's
things.
popping. It's okay. Once you get close enough, boof, there it is. Otherwise, no idea.
Yeah. Which then makes the game harder. Way harder.
Yeah, I think for me, this really does have like 10 of the most unique jiggies in a level that are making you do very different things in a single level to earn each of them. So that's one of the main reasons I like this level a lot. And then by comparison to Rusty Bucket Bay, I just think this level is chock full of charm with the characters. Like every single thing in this level is full of characters. Whether you are immediately going and running into the hermit crab, or you're running onto the boat and you're seeing the crying hippo, or even if you're just going swimming, there's all of a sudden a shark that's talking to you and is telling you that he's about to eat you. Or even the chest that you find at the end. It's like, oh, hey, you finally found me, but please don't break me, or whatever. Just there's so much charm in this level that it really, like, when you compare it to a level like Rusty Bucket Bay, it's like, how did they really? There's like no real interesting characters or fun in Rusty Bucket Bay, and then you look at a level like this, and it's just that it's everywhere. So yeah, I love this level. This is top 2 for me, and I really cannot understate that this is probably my favorite song in the game.
Yeah,
it's up there. Like when I think of Banjo-Kazooie jams, like this is top of the list for sure. Like this is immediately what comes to my mind. So I really like this level a lot.
And that Smash remix of this song is really good too.
Yes,
it
is very good.
They're too good to us. Smash Brothers is too good to us.
I wanted to say one more thing about Treasure Trove Cove. You mentioned the shark, Snacker.
Yes.
I think that's such an appropriate thing to add to this level, because being in the water is really not that important. There's like 2 collectibles that I can think of where you got to get in the water to do something. So Snacker is just there as this threat, that actually really scary threat, because you do not swim. You have not swam much at this point. You do not want to be in that water. It is actually very scary.
It scared me a lot as a kid. It still kind of like gave me butterflies and made me nervous this time around. It's the music.
Yeah,
it's the music.
And they teach you about Snacker early because they bait you with the Jinjo
right
at the
away.
start of the level.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. I jumped in the water, and then the dun 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 comes in, and you're like, oh. It also helps push you toward land, and then adds pressure to the platforming. If you don't land on this box or on this bridge, or the wind up to the lighthouse and stuff, now you have to deal with getting out of the water. So Snacker is good. He pushes you in, but also adds tension surrounding you. It's actually super smart design.
I don't have any hard feelings about the rest, or I have feelings about the rest of the levels here on our list, I guess I should say. But I have trouble separating them. So I'm curious where you guys are at. Do you have any left that we haven't talked about that you either really love or you really dislike for one reason or another?
I know how to separate them for myself.
All right. Well, Michael, you show us the way. Make sense of the levels.
You said
here
you
for
got
us.
a top
That
3
sounds
in
fun.
mind, right?
So you want to talk about the good? You want another good one, or do we want to harp on one a little bit?
Let's do another good one for now.
Okay, and I think this is very common that people really like this one, but Freezeezy Peak. Another fantastic level. This one has more to do with just the theming and the atmosphere and the feel of the level, more so than the actual what you do. Because I think it's generally kind of, I don't want to say basic, but it's not the most inventive or the most exciting. But just being in that level is such a joy, just a delight to be in this level. And that makes it my number 3, just for that.
I like this level on the whole. I do. There are specific gameplay elements in
The
it.
second race?
The second race, that's rigged. He pushes you out of the way. He just clips into you.
Literally, the strategy is let him get ahead. So
It actually,
to beat it, I actually had to mute the TV because the music is so fast that of the shoes and stuff is. I was like, I played it like 6 times in a row. My mother's trying to talk to me while I'm trying to win this race, and this bear keeps pushing me out of the way. It was a very tense situation. I was like, mute, focus, beat the bear. I wasn't a fan of that in particular, and I don't like the snowmen. how, because flying and getting him dead. If there were crosshairs or just something that could help me point directly ahead, that would be super great. But I think the theme is awesome, and it's tight and very vertical, and they alleviate that a little bit with the flying, but also there's this like big wonderful scarf to walk and cross. It's just a captivating level visually, and it's a lot of fun. It's not just to Freezeezy Peak. I think it applies a lot throughout all of the levels where Mumbo is present. The transformations, which I think fit here well, because you turn into a walrus to get one of the Jiggies, which is fine. You go in there and you get the Jiggy. But the walrus doesn't do anything. It just lets you walk somewhere else.
You can walk in the water that doesn't freeze you now.
Sure, walk in the water, and the other walrus will let you in. And this also applies to, say, Mad Monster Mansion, where you turn into a pumpkin, and you can walk places and do stuff you couldn't do before. Okay, but the
places, I mean, we'll talk about that one in a second, but the places you can walk to in that are a little bit more fun. Right. For sure.
Yes.
Bubble Gloop Swamp. You turn into an alligator who, granted, does have an attack, unlike the walrus and the pumpkin. But you can get inside the nose of a bigger gator and also walk in the water.
Play in a mini game.
And so
what you're saying is you hate Mumbo and you think he's bad at giving you abilities.
That was what was actually a little disappointing to me. And this is entirely warped by the nostalgia of playing Tooie at my friend's house as a kid. Because we'll find out when I play Tooie here in a few weeks, but I remember the transformations in Tooie being way more interesting at the very least. Maybe they're all just the same thing. You just get to walk somewhere else. But I just feel like what you turned into was more interesting and dynamic, and I had fun with it. That's also like 6-7-year-old Max, not 27-year-old Max. So I was a little disappointed that Mumbo's abilities really didn't let you do too much. The bee and Click Clock Wood does. What else do you turn into? I'm trying to think now.
The tick,
looking at the list here.
Or the
I
just spider or whatever it is.
Am I off base here? Is it just because my brain expected Tooie and?
You're not too wrong. I agree with you. Okay. I think. I was just gonna say I still like the moments when you transform into things, but you're not wrong that there's not a lot to do with them most of the time.
And I'll also say I never would have known that you could leave a level as a transformation if Logan had not told me that.
Oh yeah.
Like, I think it was you told, because I was trying to find.
It was one of the jigsaw puzzle. It was the jigsaw puzzle behind
a bubble gloop.
Yep.
And I was like, I can't figure out how to get there.
I
couldn't find the stilts, and he's like, just turn into the gator. I'm like, you can leave the level.
Yeah.
Wait, so how'd you get the grunty switch from Mumbo's Mountain?
Did you just run up it?
On top of the mountain, outside of the level?
Outside the level,
yeah.
Yep.
No, I didn't get it. I couldn't figure out how to get up there. So that's Jigsaw 99 that I didn't get. I don't have two of them. Well, that's easy. I at least know where that is.
Yeah, but I think you make a great point. Once again, you found a flaw in this perfect video game. Thank you.
It's weird. It's interesting to come at it so far removed from its target audience, which is clearly kids in the 90s.
I think the transformations could have used more. Some were better than others, like you mentioned. I think the tick or whatever, the ones with abilities, like that one can go up very steep slopes, and the croc can bite, whatever. The bee can fly quickly. Those were great. The walrus, for example, basically a key to get places. That sucks, but you still could have done a lot of cool stuff with that. They didn't. Each transformation has like 2 things to do each, and it just varied if they were cool or useful or not.
I think the one thing I would chuck in about Mumbo 2 personally is that I feel like he doesn't get as characterized in this game as I felt like I remembered he did. Maybe I'm totally wrong on that front, but I felt like he got more fleshed out as a character in this game than I remember. And maybe I'm kind of crossing my wires with Tui, where I feel like he gets maybe not a bigger role.
I remember Mumbo a lot in Tui.
Yeah, I feel like they kind of put
his personality.
They place him more into a central role in that game, I feel like, and they give him more stuff to do in a more direct role, at least.
Yeah, absolutely. In that game especially, because there's like a whole rivalry he has, and
yeah,
you actually play as him, so it's like it's a bigger connection.
For sure.
Here it's just more like he makes me laugh.
Yes.
Turn me into a frog. Thanks. Bye.
Yeah,
there's not much there.
It's very much just a high buy situation with him. For the record, I like Freeze Easy Peak too. I know I didn't say too much about it, but I do think that's one of the upper mid levels for sure. I do want to, if it's okay, I do want to bring up. It's one I don't think we will talk about very much, but I think Mumbo's Mountain is really good. And it's a starter level, obviously, and it's largely a tutorial level. But I think for what that level is supposed to be, I really can't think of any faults with it. I think the most obtuse Jiggy is probably the one where you have to go climb up the tree and maybe get the orange and throw it to the little monkey. Maybe just because you don't realize that that's what you have to do to help him. But other than that, I really think that level teaches you just about everything that you need to know about the game there from the start, especially coming off of Spiral Mountain. If Spiral Mountain's what's teaching you the basic moves and stuff like that, this level teaches here's everything you're going to need for the most part. These are the jiggies. These are the notes. This is kind of the general format of how each of these levels are going to be. And it's only like, I think this time with my playthrough, I had 100% in and got everything in the level within 20 minutes. So it's very short, but I think for what it is, it's a very sound, strong opening level.
I would agree. I personally don't like it that much because I've played it 3,000 times. But like I acknowledge that it's just a good starter level. So
yeah, but compared to what the rest of the game does, it's kind of bland in what it does, but it's clearly not trying to be anything more than that, and I kind of like have a fondness and respect for it, or maybe not respect, but I just don't have anything bad to say about it necessarily, I guess is what I would say. So
I think it's very tight in its focus. If, like you said, Logan, if Spiral Mountain is how you move, then Mumbo's Mountain is what you're doing in the other eight or nine worlds. This is what you're actually going for and collecting and so on and so forth. And it introduces you pretty much to every type of mechanic except the pads, like Michael mentioned, which are introduced in the second level, Treasure Trove Cove. So it's a great start. It's small, quick. It's fun. Some of the, like, why is there a bull and a monkey and ants? Like, some of the character stuff is interesting. It's very fairy tale, I suppose, in that way. But it fits. It's the logical choice after a Spiral Mountain and then getting into Gruntilda's Lair. It's the logical thing to like put a player to next before getting into the fun, crazy stuff that you can do later. It's a good base. Mumbo Mountain, fine. A solid start.
Now that we're kind of in the middle, or I don't know, the whole thing's got muddled. We'll go back and do a count in a second. Let's just go down the list for the last ones we have here. I guess I feel like that makes the most sense at this point in time. How do you guys feel about Bubble Gloop Swamp? Because I think it's a little lower on my list personally. I like a lot of things in this level, but it also feels very disjointed in a lot of ways. Like, whereas a lot of levels feel like they're Click Clock Wood is kind of centered around the tree or whatever, or the snowman for Freeze Easy Peak. Like, this feels like it's just got different sections, and there's an alligator over here, and there's a maze up on this hill, and there's a turtle over here, and we're gonna throw in these crocodiles that you gotta spit eggs in their mouth. Like, it's just a bunch of things kind of thrown together. And I've never been a huge fan of the croc minigame either. It's not bad, but you also have to make sure that you have the running shoes first, which is a little annoying because typically you do this level out of order. Because you don't get the shoes until where do you get them again?
You get them in Gobi's Valley, but it is very possible to win without them.
It is.
Wait, hold on. You need the shoes to beat the gator? Crocodile thing?
Didn't you see them in the background? They're there for your help.
Yeah, but I didn't have it unlocked.
You can do it. No, you can totally beat them without it.
But you can wear those as an alligator?
Yeah.
Yeah. The game also doesn't tell you that. And no other transformation can do that. But here we are.
Wait, so it just makes you run around really fast to eat all of the little gobies or whatever?
Yeah.
Gobies. Good lord.
This makes
They're not
sense
gobies.
why shoes were there when I was in the game show part.
I was going to say, even in the game show part, you didn't do that?
I didn't touch them because I was a gator. I wasn't Kazooie.
Woof.
That's funny.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
This changes everything.
Wow,
Well,
that must. I can't imagine how hard that must have been for you then, especially when you got to the end with the game show, which we'll talk about as well. But
Well, to prove Michael's point, it is possible to beat it without the shoes.
It is.
Because I definitely did that twice.
it is. But I mean, yeah, I don't know if you guys have anything else you really want to say. Music in this one too. If I'm gonna hate on Grant Kirkhope at any point, sorry, Grant. This is like near the bottom of the music list for me, maybe too. It's not my favorite. I don't hate this level by any means, though. I really like this level in a general sense. But probably lower on the list for me personally, I think.
Yeah. For me, also lower, and I think the biggest, you mentioned the disjointed feeling of it, which, yes, it is disjointed. It's got a bunch of different little sections, and it reminds me of a game that I now hate is a very strong word, but Donkey Kong 64. Oof.
No.
I really loved it as a kid, but not anymore. No, when I replayed on the Virtual Console for Wii U, oof, no, not good. That game's very disjointed. It's area, hallway, area, 4 hallways, 4 areas, hallway. It's not good, and this kind of gives that vibe a little bit. I don't know if it was like a N64 limitation thing, but if this level was more just circular and had the alligator in the middle, that central point, then maybe something different. But yeah, agree on that point.
I can't believe you would take the name of Donkey Kong 64 and besmirch it like this.
It's not good.
It's been a long time since I played that game. But
one of the notes, and it's been a long time since I've played it. Michael, you most likely have played it more recently, which I would definitely defer to you there. But one of the things I kept thinking about in this game, in general, was nostalgia glasses are definitely on here, but I feel like 2E and Donkey Kong 64 felt more like open worlds. But I spent a ton of time as a kid playing Donkey Kong 64 because I owned that one. Just a ton of time trying to find those darn bananas. If this was collect-a-thon on steroids, and then 2E at the friend's house. So like my brain definitely is wired to like those more. I was like, wow, these, they really took the foundation of Kazooie and built it up. Anyway, Donkey Kong 64, I will not stand for. I kept hearing music too. Like if you go into Mumbo's hut, I'm like, this is Donkey Kong music. This mansion here. But I guess really Donkey Kong music is Mumbo music.
It's banjo music, yeah.
Yeah, banjo came first. Yes, but my brain was wired a little differently. Bubble Gloop, fine.
Yeah. I'm kind of feeling the same way about Gobi's Valley, personally. Kind of disjointed again as well. No, not to the level that Bubble Gloop is, I don't think. I think my thing with this level, the more I think about it, is there's no one Jiggy in this level that I can remember that I feel very satisfied with getting. Maybe the one with the camel.
What about the maze?
Yes. The maze is okay, I guess.
I was more satisfied getting the grunty switch in the maze, like figuring out how to get over there.
Yeah. Yeah, I almost agree with that, but figuring out that that's back there. Yeah, I don't have exact problems with this level, but I also don't have any sort of great praise for it necessarily either.
Gobi's Valley, I'm very torn on. I like the theme, and I actually like the segmentation here. I think it fits thematically. Like, there's the Sphinx and the pyramid, and magic carpets. Like, I just feel like the theme of it all kind of comes together, and it makes it clear to just, to find out where you need to go and what you need to do. But then the slanted hills tiles, which look like just running quicksand waterfalls. The beginning of the game, I was like, am I allowed to walk on these? This doesn't seem very safe. Visually, it just doesn't seem kind of great in that way. And then my biggest beef is you can get every jigsaw except one because you need this special flying dash attack from Freezeezy Peak, but the game clearly is guiding you to Gobi's Valley before Freezeezy Peak. I think maybe that's because that's where I ended up, but they definitely take you right to Gobi's Valley and go, can't get this one yet.
Yeah. Okay. So that's my biggest beef with this game. I hate that so much because it's actually an interchangeable thing. You can't do one or the other. It doesn't matter which one you do first because both of them will be missing something from the other.
Yeah.
It's the only time in this entire game that it does that, and that sucks. When you set a precedent early on with the worlds, how they function, how you collect everything, and you follow that for 4 worlds, and you expect the rest to do the same, and then this happens, and then you're confused. Will it happen again? And the answer is no. This is the only world where that happens, and that sucks. And I think it's so important to make sure you have that down in a collectathon, because what makes a collectathon work is not so much like the amount of things that you collect. Well, actually, that's not true. That's very important. But it very much has to do with expectations and knowing what you can accomplish and what you can't accomplish. So going into that world, for example, if I was playing a game like that today and I ran into World 5 and I couldn't get this one Jiggy, I'd be searching that level up, down, left, right, every single corner for however I unlock the shoes in Freezeezy Peak. And it would never occur to me that it's later because this game has not taught me. That sucks. You just can't have that. And there's a level of... with collectathons, it's important to have a good balance of unknown and like the expectation thing I was talking about. So you have 100 notes, but you also know that you can collect all of them. You can, and you should. And it's bad if they just cut you off 5 notes short or something.
Yeah.
That's bad.
That was something I always reminded myself when I got to 95 notes or something. It applied in Gobi's Valley because some of the notes are inside the pyramid that is opened after you fly and dash into the target. I was like, well, I found them all. They must be in here, or a different level. It's like, there's some building I haven't been in yet, or some place I haven't gone. What am I missing? And that would incentivize me to explore and push and try to find it. And I think that it works very well, I think, in that way. But some of the design is just like, how do you even do this? Kind of one theme, I really probably should have just mentally taken this note and learned it much sooner and just kind of stuck to it. But one of the notes that I wrote for myself was, when in doubt, eggs. It never would have occurred to me in Click Clock Wood to put the eggs in the hole in the ground to make a flower grow, or do that in the Mad Monster Mansion for all the pots. If you can't figure out how to open, if you can't figure out how to do something, it probably involved shooting out or pooping out eggs. And I don't think that's quite natural or instinctive, at least definitely to me today. My brain just wasn't spam eggs if you can't figure it out. So,
especially because they don't really make you ever have to do anything with that. Like when they introduced the eggs mechanic, they're just kind of like, oh yeah, by the way, you can also poop them out the back if you press this button instead. Just heads up. Okay, thank you, bye. Like they teach you how to do it the one way, but then they just kind of like add the caveat on it. Like, oh, you can also do this, by the way. Anyway, see ya.
That leaves us with one. Mad Monster Mansion. The spooky level. What do you think about this one, Michael?
This one is... I like it, and I enjoy it. I think it'd be like a 5 or a 4.
That's what I'm
my
thinking.
list. I'm not sure. It's really... This is another one where it's really about the atmosphere, the theme. Honestly, I think everything about it... I'm trying to think, like, what about this sucks? I'm sure there's something out there, but for the most part, you're exploring a mansion. That's cool. You're going into these bedrooms, into this old church. There's not as much, if I remember correctly, not as many characters. You have the toilet,
the hand, which isn't really a character.
The hand,
kind of a
I guess you have a fair amount. But it's really about like the enemies. They really give the level life and personality.
And they're very difficult to kill.
Here. They make you spell Banjo-Kazooie again, just in a different way, other than ground pounding the floor. They make you trace a glass with a Ouija board. Around. Yeah.
Oh, it is a Ouija board. I guess that didn't even occur to me.
I think that's what it's supposed to be for sure. Yeah. I think my favorite part of this level is when you turn into the pumpkin and you jump in the toilet mouth, and then Grunty says like, "Wow, you're disgusting." Except she says it with whatever rhyme she says. I think that's a great moment because she really doesn't talk too much in any of the levels or anything, but she makes one exception for when you jump in the toilet, and then she chimes in like, "What are you doing?" which is a really great moment.
Well, actually, I think this is her. This is like her house.
Yeah, that seems like the implication.
Her bedroom.
Yeah.
So she has a house inside her lair.
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
It's pretty big. It's pretty meta.
She also has a desert.
Max,
and
I am
ship.
If I never told you that you could have turned into the croc at Bubble Gloop Swamp, how long would it have taken you to realize that you have to be the pumpkin to go get into the side? To go hit the switch
for Mumbo.
Yeah,
when you leave the level, in that little
when you leave the level and you go off into the little the offshoot path or whatever, and then the only way I
wouldn't have figured it out.
The only way you can get in the door is if you are the pumpkin.
Yeah, no, I would have looked it up. I would have been like, how do you fit in this space? My brain thought transformations were bound to the world they occurred in, and they technically are, because you could leave and there's a sphere,
but that's the one time it like totally forces you to do it, right? Like for sure, because I think you can get the jigsaw puzzle behind Bubble Gloop another way.
You can get the shoes.
You can get the shoes.
Yeah. They're stilts.
I think this is the only time in the game it forces you to leave a level as the transformation and then go do something else to unlock another area of the game, which is pretty obtuse in some ways. Because like you said, it's something they show you and they introduce, like, oh hey, you can do this, and that's the only time we're going to tell you that you can do it the whole game, or that you at least that you need to do it. Is required.
Well, there's one more. If you take one step backwards, it becomes even more obnoxious because there's actually a gate there.
Yes.
You have to knock down as Banjo-Kazooie. People who have played this game, if you forget to do that and you come on out with the pumpkin, it's like, well, I actually have to go change back, destroy it, turn into the pumpkin again, and then go back.
This happened.
And it's one of those textures, again, that really doesn't look like
there we go.
A gate that you should be able to knock down, but you can, obviously, but it's just... Yeah. It looks it looks slightly off, but it also looks like it fits in with the background.
Well, it also has a giant padlock on it.
Yep.
As a part of the texture. So it inherently didn't convey to me that Kazooie's beak could just destroy the entire gate.
Yeah. Okay, let's rank these. So we're agreeing that Clanker's Cavern is the worst, which we didn't even talk about that level very much. I do think that level has charm with Clanker himself. And I like the idea that he's just a giant garbage disposal fish. Yeah. I think that's funny.
I wish Clanker appeared in Rusty Bucket Bag.
That would be good. I think that level, yeah, I mean, it sucks because it's a water level, but I think Clinker himself is like a pretty memorable character. That's the best thing I can say about it. Anyway, I would still say that's the bottom though, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I'm
so that would be 9 if we're ordering them here. I guess we'll go bottom to top. I feel like that might be. Well, we've already got number 1 with Treasure Trove Cove. So we've got Treasure Trove Cove 1.
All suspense removed.
Yeah, we'll bounce back and forth here. Rusty Bucket Bay 8, we said. What are we feeling like goes above that?
Bubble Gloop, I think.
Probably 7.
Based off our vibe, yeah. I feel like Bubble Gloop.
I don't agree, but that's fine.
What would you think?
Voice your opinion.
I'd probably put Mumbles Mountain, but you guys like Mumbles Mountain more, so that's fine. 2 against 1.
I just have less. I think Mumbo's Mountain goes right above Bubble Gloop.
Yeah.
Personally, because I have like key design problems with Bubble Gloop. I think Mumbo's I just don't really have design problems with, but it is just unremarkable, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's 7 and 6, and then 5. I'd say it's between like Gobies and Mad Monster Mansion.
I'd put Monster above.
That's
Gobi.
That's what
I'd put Gobi at
Gobi at 5,
Monster and
Mansion
Mad Monster at 4.
Max, I'm gonna guess is gonna say Click Clock Wood at 3 or well, what do you like between Freezeezy Peak and Click Clock Wood? Was it because this is what we're down to?
Freezeezy would be my 2.
Okay.
And Click Clock would be 3. But
And
I know Michael Click Clock fights
I'm
for second.
I'm flipped. I'm Click Clock at 2 personally.
I mean, I'm fine consenting and giving Click Clock 2.
Is that what you said you are, Michael? Click Clock Wood?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. So then it goes from 1 to 9. It goes Treasure Trove Cove, Click Clock Wood, Freezeezy Peak, Mad Monster Mansion, Gobi's Valley, Mumbo's Mountain, Bubble Gloop Swamp, Rusty Bucket Bay, and Clinker's Cavern.
This is the official ranking and cannot be changed.
Please add this to the
by anyone else.
Please add this to the official Banjo-Kazooie Wikipedia entry. Somebody.
So we've left the worlds and we've touched on the gameplay and kind of the design of these worlds. It's very intimate. It's all woven together, I think, quite well. They're integral to each other. It's not just world and applied gameplay to it. World and gameplay go hand in hand and to create the interesting game scenarios. But the game at the end gives you an ending and then gives you an end game, which I think is pretty interesting for the time. You don't really see that a lot today, but you get to the end, which is a giant pad of Tootie's face, which gave me a lot of Donkey Kong 64 vibes, but again, Banjo was first. And you walk in and it's, come on down, let's do the game show. And let me tell you, boys, having this under a imaginary time crunch because I had the wrong time in my head when we were going to start by an hour. It was probably more frustrating than normal, I think, adding an external crunch. But all in all, I actually like the game show part.
I think it sucks. Or maybe it doesn't suck, but like as somebody who was totally not on a time crunch, I just did not like it. I think everything with Brintilda is just something that this game doesn't need necessarily. Like I think
the sister?
Yeah. I think it encourages you to explore the lair a little bit more, to go find her. But I don't want to take notes in an 8 to 10 hour game of things that I'll need to remember at hour 9.5 or whatever. Maybe it's not. It's not that long of a game, I guess, depending on how fast you beat it. But anyway, yeah, it's annoying in that regard. And again, not everything that you need to do during the game show relies on those facts. It's just a couple of them. I just don't like it. I think my problem is that this game has a very good flow otherwise, where you are constantly moving forward and constantly doing something, and then this just like it just grinds to a halt depending on if you can. I mean, maybe Michael feels differently because I'm gonna guess that he could beat the game show with his eyes closed at this point.
Well,
maybe not with your eyes closed, but I'm gonna guess you know most of the answers other than the Gruntilda facts, which are, I found out this time playing it, are different every single time you play the game. Correct?
You mean the question that they present to you?
No, the Gruntilda facts specifically. So it'll say like, oh, did you know Gruntilda went to her favorite magazine is this, and then it'll give you one of, what is it, like 3 options. It'll randomize what the 3 options are every time you play. That's what I read on the Banjo-Kazooie wiki, at least. Is that because I tried to look up the answers for this, and it said we straight up can't give you the answers for this because they're randomized depending on your game. So
there's probably a pool, I would imagine.
Maybe I'm wrong about that, but that's what I read on the interwebs. So if you think that Gruntilda went to Fat Hag High, maybe she went to whatever, some other school in somebody else's game. I don't know if the answers are consistent.
I'm not sure. I don't know about that. I can't confirm or deny, but that would be annoying.
Maybe the wiki lied to me. Maybe it did. But
that's the thing about wikis, Logan. Anyone can contribute.
That's true. The thing I read, though, said that you can't give definitive answers because it's
must be true.
Always going to be wrong for some players. So
okay, so that's obnoxious. That would be obnoxious if that's the way it is. Then it's not great. I think it is if you're playing for the first time, I think it's a cool thing to encounter where you're like, wait, what is this? How do I figure this out?
I had no idea this was in the game.
Exactly. Most people don't care to talk to Bryntilda. And then, especially during that time, especially as a kid, you'd go to school, you talk about the games you play, and you can kind of figure something out based on, oh, somebody else did it, and they told me you have to talk to that one witch that's nice that I saw one time, where I didn't even know that existed. I gotta go find that out now. It was just different than looking it up. So I think that added to why that worked at that time, and I still think it works because it doesn't. I mean, you played it today. Does it happen very often? These questions, these like really
the grunty spacing. No, I think
it's like once
the route that I ended up on maybe had 4.
I was gonna say it's once every like 5 or 6 spots. I feel like it asks you one of them, something around there.
Yeah.
So like if you really don't want to do that stuff, then you just have to be better at the other questions, I guess.
I honestly preferred those questions because I did write everything down that the sister said, and so when you write down your notes and you read your notes, then it's easier to remember. So I was fairly confident.
Why did you do that? Why did you write all those notes? Did you know going in that would happen?
Well, the words were squiggly. Means it's important. There is emphasis.
I've never encountered another human who's done this.
This man's been playing video games for 25 years. He knows that something was up.
I have my notes for the show. She said 3 things. I was like, squiggly line. This is important. Where? Who knows?
Congratulations. Good job.
How do you guys feel about the game? Like, yeah, essentially you do save Tootie after you beat this, and then the credits they roll. And then you have to if you want to complete it and kill Grunty, you have to go back. Like, do you like how that's structured? And then and we can talk about the final boss fight after this too. But like, I forgot that happened, I guess, when I played it this time. And I thought it was like bizarre that you just don't run up the stairs and go fight her right away. And then you have to watch credits, and then it spits you back out at the front of the lair again. And you got to go all the way. It's kind of odd. And I'm wondering what their reasoning for that was, because they clearly want you to go kill Grunty afterwards. But
sure,
did they just assume that not everybody has 100 jiggies in their pocket to go do that right away? I don't know.
I love it. I love that it's this way, actually. I like it for 2 reasons. Number one, if you are a kid, or even if you're playing now, you play the game, you get to Grunty, and this is your final boss, a game show. And you save Toot and you get credits and whatever, it's over. But then it's like, wait, oh no, there's just a little bit more for you. It's not over. There's a special feeling to that, especially as a kid when you're not like me where I read a game as 20 minutes or 20 hours and I want to cry. I'd rather it be 5 hours, you know? But back then, no, more game. Good.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also good because there are games out there where you do get to the final boss, you fight the final boss, the credits roll, and then you can't turn the game off and you can't progress. You're just stuck there. You restart back right before the final boss, before your conclusion. And yes, fighting Gruntilda here is the actual conclusion of the game, but at least here you have saved your sister, you have done your task, and the game is finished, and your like save point, I don't know, you have saved the thing and it's done. You can save there and you can be done. Not that you actually would. And I think it's so cool that you could be convinced that it's over, then you're like, oh, well, let me walk up here, and it's actually a dark and creepy tower, and you get to the big room and just a giant portrait of Gruntilda, the main boss, and you need all these jiggies for it, and the doors open, and there's the cauldron, and I love
There's
that
the
so much.
transfer
I think I'm just talking
machine
about
that
the
you've
ending.
been seeing in the game over screens the entire game as well, that I like that
Yes.
they took away in the side room. Which
Absolutely.
that I told Max this, that cutscene used to scare me so badly as a kid. I don't know why. 2D going rawr used to like horrify me when I was 4 years old. I don't know why. You get scared of weird things when you're a kid, but that used to scare me.
I had a moment. You were talking about why you like it so much, and I do too. I think this is actually really a clever incentive to go get enough jiggies to like do, to finish the game, to do everything and see everything that the game has to offer. I think it's very clever in that way, and it's a good incentive. It's almost like the Click Clock Wood, where you see the puzzle early and you get the level at the end. The whole game, Grunty has been teasing you, and then you get to the end and you save your sister, and then they tease you again with like, well, if you actually want to take her out, you gotta get to the top of the tower and fight her and stuff. But you talked about that bait and switch isn't the right phrase, but you save your sister and then there's more to the game. It's kind of a nice surprise. And my brain immediately went to Wind Waker, because the goal of Wind Waker is save your sister. And then it turns out, oh, there's a legend and I'm actually a part of an ancient prophecy and there's more to the game. And I remember that same feeling of, oh, wait, there's more in Wind Waker. And I'm sure that also applies, Logan, Michael, I'm sure, I don't know if you played it when you were a kid. I know Logan did. But Ocarina of Time, another N64 game, probably had a similar thing where it's like, oh, I'm a kid. I got all the things I need. Oh, no, wait, now I'm time traveling and I'm an adult and there's more. Now, those are different. Those are more in the middle. It's not the very end of the game and, oh, now there's a little bit more. But I do like that there is one more thing, and it's the thing you really have wanted to do the entire game, which is fight Grunty and win. I think it's very clever and very smart and fun design.
So what do we think about the actual boss fight?
I like it. It's very challenging, appropriately for a final boss. I think there is a little too much at the start with the eggs and trying to like hop on the little ledges, and like that goes on for a little bit too much. But it is a challenge. It's long, and it feels very rewarding, especially as a kid when you do it by yourself and nobody helps you to get that done. And I like that it's so hard, because it makes getting all the jiggies in the game worth it, because then you get the red honeycombs, and that is such a great reward that is actually useful for the final boss.
Which is what I told Max he needed to do, because I knew he would probably need the help.
And I just had 97 jigsaws by the end of the game. Need 98.
If you would have got the one on top of Wumbo's Mountain, you would have had that problem.
I had to go back. I went back to Click Clock Wood and planted eggs to grow a flower.
You never did that? That was the thing you never did?
Again, I didn't think egg equals flower.
I think my favorite part about this is just that I don't think the fight's bad by any means, but I just love that the Jinjos get some comeuppance at the very end of the game, just out of nowhere. That's because I do like the idea that Banjo is underpowered, and the witch is clearly strong, and she's clearly had a stranglehold on him the whole game. And he's not going to be able to overcome that just because it's a final fight. So he has to lean on the Jinjos, which you wouldn't really expect to come out of nowhere, and the Jinjonator, which shows up. And it's all very random and goofy, and none of it's hinted at before. It just shows up out of nowhere. Like, oh, the Jinjos are here. You spit the eggs in these statues, and they'll kill her. It's really silly, but I love that was always how she got taken out, rather than, Banjo and her just throwing hands or something like that. It was instead Banjo summoning the power of the Jinjos to take her down. I thought that was always one of the funniest parts of the fight, and I still really like that a lot.
But to the Jinjo's credit, I'm pretty sure, I think the story behind them is that Grunty took them and placed them here, that they need to be rescued.
Yeah.
And I think that might just be in when you first collect a Jinjo, they'll say that in one line or something, and that's the only time you ever think about that. So they do have their revenge.
Yes.
So there's something to it, but it is, yes, very random at the end.
Well, it's very random that there's an ancient Jinjonator statue standing on top of this tower that you can activate. That's the random part about it. But yeah, they do establish it, I think, once you grab the first one on Mumbo's Mountain. They say like that one line of dialogue that you're talking about. So
I like the fight, all in all. Actually, by the last run, I think the first 3 phases, the patterns are fairly straightforward. My beef is more with just the flying mechanics than the actual goal of hitting her while flying. I think that makes sense. I just wish I could aim better. Basically, I'm not very good at it, so that part was always frustrating. And then I think, like Michael, what you were saying, it's just hard enough. And I had a moment. Now, granted, I did go back and get the red honeycombs because, again, I was trying to get it done before we recorded the show tonight. But there was a moment, I think on my 3rd attempt, I died. But I realized the pattern that I needed to take to, bring the Jinjonator to life. Which, at least my strategy at that point, when she is just throwing fireballs like crazy, was hop on Kazui's legs and just go back and forth to dodge those. And then when she throws the homing magic sparkly ball, go invincible. And then there's a pause. And then I would do one of the holes on the side of the Jinjonator with eggs and then repeat and just do that 4 times. And it was one of those satisfying boss moments of, I know what I need to do now. Now I just have to execute it. And then the next time I did it and I won. And if I had done better on the flying part, I could have done it without losing all the red honeycombs, which means I could have done it without the red honeycombs. So I think there's a very satisfying learning curve to her, at least as an adult. As a kid, I have no idea how hard they may or may not have thought this was.
Very hard.
Yeah.
Very hard.
I guess where that leaves us really is just kind of what is the legacy of this game as a whole. It's the first game in a series of 5 total games. 2 of one of those is a racing game on the Game Boy Advance, and yet Rare made a ton of games on the N64, and this was Banjo's big debut. But the Bear and the Bird still feel very relevant today, and sure, Smash has helped, I think, the younger generation really identify, at least know who these 2 are. But for people our age, Banjo feels actually very alive right now, even though there hasn't been a new game since Nuts and Bolts. Michael, what do you think about the legacy of this game? As someone who it's such a part of their life that you make your own types of levels, and you just know this game way more than I ever could.
I'm glad that I'm not just some rando person losing their mind over this game nobody knows about, people forgot about, because it is everything you said, very, very relevant for a game that doesn't do, for a series that doesn't do anything. Very relevant. I'm I am very happy that it has the legacy it has. I think it's also well deserved. When you think of the N64, you think of Mario 64, Ocarina of Time. You think of Banjo-Kazooie, and I think that's appropriate. That's how people think about that. And even in terms of 3D platformers, I love to use Banjo-Kazooie as a like, hey, this is how you do it right. This is how, and it's not perfect. We talked about a lot of the flaws, but like this is a great base. Look at this. Look at the level design here. Look at the collectathon criteria here, and build from there. Even when comparing to Mario 64, it shows how much you can do, even with limitations, to really give your game personality, to give it what's the word? Like just personality. This is a great base for that. I love this game. I'm just starting to ramble now, so somebody take it away. I'm gonna start crying. This game's so good.
Well, what's the legacy for you, Logan?
Yeah, I mean, I think Michael really nailed it. It's like they don't make games with this type of charm and personality. I feel like everything feels very. This is something I've been feeling. I think this actually dawned on me the other day a little bit more, and I know this is something not unique by any means, but like games are feeling very corporate nowadays, which is ironic. Because Banjo is currently owned by one of the biggest corporations on the planet, so it's not that Banjo currently is not. I wouldn't say the product of a corporate company, because it's not like they're doing much with it or making anything new out of it. But like this feels like a game from a bygone era, and it doesn't feel like we get games like this anymore. And I think that's why this game still has a very special place in my heart. And I feel like it's kind of like you were saying, Max, why this game is still relevant in a lot of ways to this day is because people don't see things like this being made anymore. And when things like this do, I feel like they're trying to, like Yooka-Laylee is a good example. I feel like maybe we'll mention this a time or two over the course of this season. It feels hollow because it's trying to emulate what this is rather than just being a natural creation. This game just feels unique in so many ways, and I can't think of anything that is really made like this nowadays that wouldn't come from a AAA dev, I would say. I feel like a lot of things that you feel like that are made nowadays with this level of charm and style come from the indie scene rather than from AAA devs or publishers. So yeah, I think that's why it stands out a lot, and it's just a good game still to this day. Like even playing this again within the past week, like still holds up. Still a very good game. Still a very fun game. I enjoyed my time with it a lot.
Yeah, I agree with that. As someone who's played it for the first time, I think it holds up remarkably well. Even with the understanding of some hardware limitations and design choices that they would have made on the N64. And I think the kind of support, the fact that a game from that time and on that system is treated so well as a port to a new console in a modern era. I think, Microsoft just came in and bought Rare and the properties and things associated with it. And I think the level of care that they've let Rare show that series and those games over the years is actually really nice. And I think another testament to Microsoft's incredible back compatibility that they've been able to maintain through their generations and stuff, and the respect that they seem to have for their own legacy of games, as especially the part of the big three that's been in the video game industry the shortest amount of time, at least in a home console aspect. And so I think it's awesome. I'm excited to play Tui on my own for the very first time instead of at a neighbor's house whenever we would go over there. I'm excited to revisit Grunty's Revenge because I just liked that game a lot as a kid, and I'm
notice you're not saying you're excited to play Nuts and Bolts there.
Well, I'm morbidly curious about Nuts and Bolts, so we will see how that experience goes on the next episode of Season 3 here of Chapter Select. Thank you so much for listening. You can find myself on Twitter at MaxRoberts143 and my writing over at maxfrequency.net. You can find Logan on Twitter at Moreman12 and his writing over at comicbook.com. And you can find Michael on Twitter as Super Zambezi, Zambezi, and he is a content editor at DigiPen. Michael, is there anything you would like to share with the audience? Point them toward anything?
Just that if you did have any interest in the Banjo-Kazooie level modeling nonsense shenanigans, I do that. Oh, I don't do that every Wednesday anymore because I have this new job. So I do it at some point in the week. I don't know when yet, but that's on my Twitch at the same username. Okay. So check that out. And also thank you both for having me on. I am always happy to talk about Banjo-Kazooie, and it's always a pleasure to chat with you both. So thank you.
Thanks, man.
Well, thank you for joining us, Michael. And you can find links to Michael's Twitch and Twitter and stuff in the show notes, and links to anything that we talked about as well. So thank you all very much for listening, and until next time, adios. Hi, everybody. You may have noticed that we just wrapped up the show, but now you hear my voice once again. Logan and I are here. We had a couple of other things we wanted to touch on with Banjo-Kazooie that we kind of realized after we had wrapped up the show with Michael. Part of it was the episode was going much longer than we had thought, and so now we're making it even longer. But there were just a few things we wanted to touch on specifically around just the characters and story and the music, to specifically kind of call some of that stuff out. Logan, the cast of this game is both big and small.
Yeah, and they don't get... There's a lot of different side characters in the game. A lot of them we talked about with Michael over the course of our conversation with him, but we never really touched on the main cast, which is Banjo-Kazooie, and then Grunty, and then I guess to a lesser extent Bottles and Tooty. Bottles is more of a tutorial companion, teaches you how to do everything in the game for the most part. And then Tooty's really not in a ton, but yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to talk a little bit about Banjo-Kazooie and Grunty because I felt like we didn't ever really discuss them too much as characters, and they're all great characters, and they're all, I think, a lot of the reason why people like these games. I just think the design of, I mean, aside from like their characteristics and stuff like that, I think the design of them all is just fantastic. I still think that's one of the more inventive, like, character designs ever. Like, oh, hey, we'll create a bear that's the main character, and then we'll shove his best friend in a backpack that he wears on his back, and he flies around with. Like, it's just so out there in a lot of ways, and I like it a lot.
It's clever. It's a lot of personality, but it's not like a ton of traits or characteristics. It's one or two things for each character that is really amplified, and that creates the charm surrounding them. Grunty rhymes, and at least in this first game, really only cares about becoming thin and beautiful. Like,
yes.
You know, fairest of them all, kind of Snow White type situation.
Which is funny when countering that against all of the things that she does in her life, which is wash her hair with rancid milk or eat tadpoles on toast or what, like things like that. So she's like, oh, I want to be hot. Also, I would like to live this lifestyle that is horribly disgusting.
Yes, and then her rhyming, the way she interjects and taunts you the entire game it's that nice reminder that she's around and you're inside her lair and all that stuff. It's so great. And then Banjo,
he's pretty like ditzy. He's pretty dumb.
He's kind of like, what? I mean, that's kind of his gahaz.
He's very obtuse and just kind of
spacey.
Aloof. Yeah,
but he has a good heart of wanting to help people. And then Kazooie is the swing in the opposite direction, very chatty, very sarcastic, very rude, and self-serving, but ultimately willing to help in the end. It's never, this is terrible. And the pairing of them is iconic. It can't be beat.
Yeah, I mean, that one of them alone doesn't carry the game. Like, it really does have to be a combo of both of them, which sounds dumb to say because the game is literally called Banjo-Kazooie. So, but like, if they had just come up with one character or the other to somehow be in the starring role, like if this was just about Banjo and there was no Kazooie present, be a much different game. And I think people would still like it, but it really is about how they bounce off of one another and how their personalities mesh. And the writing in the game, like, overall, I think is fantastic. I like that it's very... This is something that happens more in the later games, more so in this one, but it's very aware that it's a game, and it's not trying to take itself too seriously, which I love. As you said, Gruntilda's sort of rhyming scheme as she's talking with everything that she does is it's over the top, but I just love the idea that they came up with this idea while developing the game. They just totally commit to it, and it's something they commit to in every other one of the games thereafter. I mean, it's got to be very difficult to come up with inventive lines for Gruntilda.
Today I was thinking just about that and was like, man, how do you even come up with some of these rhymes? And it's so creative. It's so fun. And it makes me want to read her dialogue. It keeps me engaged with her.
For sure. Yeah, because I think a lot of games it's very easy. Because this game is not very heavy on story or characters or writing. I mean, there are moments of it, but it's not the main thing you are doing by any means. It's a collectathon. It's a gameplay focused game. So the things like the story and stuff are mainly just to serve you jumping around and going to different worlds and things like that. But yeah, it does make you want to read the dialogue in the game because it is so engaging and witty and just overall funny.
Yeah, very. I loved Banjo's kind of like argument to convince Kazooie to go fight Grunty at the end is you can peck her butt. It's just like, what? Like, this is how you convince your bird friend? It's very childish. They knew what the target was in the audience, but it still works today.
And then I think it works very well with tutorials as well. Like, anytime you learn a new move, Kazooie's like, "You're gonna do what to me here?" Like,
yes, it's hilarious that Kazooie takes pretty much is beaten up as the attack.
Yes, like all of the attacks in the game somehow involve that, and she usually comments on it in some sort of snide way, which is great. I love that.
The bickering between her and Bottles is also just a fun thing.
Yeah, and how Kazooie treats a lot of the characters that you come across in the game too is funny. Yeah, just the constant sarcasm and the constant wittiness that's flowing from Kazooie really it leads to a lot of the funnier moments when you run across characters in the game, and then of course how they all interact with Grunty as well.
Yeah, Kazooie is my favorite out of the whole bunch of people. And I was surprised that some of the characters I recall being pretty important in Tooie are either have very small roles here in Kazooie or don't even exist. So I was surprised to see that in this retroactive way. So the other big, I think, core pillar, you can't have Banjo-Kazooie without Banjo or Kazooie, but you also can't have it without the music. You can't have Banjo and Kazooie without Grant Kirkhope.
Yeah.
The composer for these games has created music that has been around for, 25 or so years, just came out with a new remix album of said songs from this game. Like, this music still follows him to this day and is very signature. You can tell when it's a Grant Kirkhope track, and this is a part of that.
The thing I wanted to talk about, and the reason we're kind of tacking this on here at the end, is I think we talked a lot with Michael about, this song's great in the game. This is one of my favorite songs. I love Treasure Trove Cove. I love Click Clock Wood, whatever. I feel like we talked about the songs that we really like in the game. The thing I wanted to talk more about, though, in regards to the soundtrack and the sound of the game overall, is how unique it is. And the sound design, beyond the soundtrack, I think the sound design in this game is just so memorable. Like all this different sound effects from all of the different characters that are in the game. I mean, the first thing we always say whenever we bring up Banjo is "Guh." Like, it's so. All the little sounds that they throw in this game are so.
The way each character talks.
Yeah, it's all super unique. It's all super iconic and synonymous with Banjo-Kazooie. Like I can hear the way that Grunty and Mumba, like the obviously the writing is not, or the dialogue in the game is not English. It's wah, 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 but I can hear all of their different unique little fake dialogue that they do in the game as well. Like it's sealed into my head. I think that's all super unique and incredibly well done, and it's something that I don't remember a lot of other games from that era doing. Like even if you compare it to something like Mario 64, it's just like text would just appear on the screen, or same sort of thing with a Zelda or something like that. Not saying you want a Zelda game to be like, but like it is that one extra thing where like even though they are not speaking English, it's like how the characters talk at the same time. Like they each have a voice.
Gives it personality. It's just like when the credits roll in the game, you go and visit. It cuts to all the different characters, side characters and stuff, and they all have voices and personality. It just makes them more memorable, which I think helps ultimately then the game stick with people for the past 20 plus years. It's a part of that identity. I will say though that some of these sound effects can get annoying.
Like which ones?
Kazooie walking.
Like that?
Yes.
The
like
Talon Trot move?
Yes. We can calm that down a little bit. Thankfully, usually the gameplay is engaging enough where like my brain will process that out. But when you start at the beginning of Gruntilda's lair and you have to walk all the way like super deep and you have to do the Talon Trot to get there.
Well, don't worry, because in Nuts and Bolts they replaced that with cars instead of a Talon Trot. So there you go.
Okay, good. All right. Well, then Nuts and Bolts is already a better game, obviously. So, that was a little bit much, and I remember, the second race in Freeze Easy Peak, the music on top of the Super Talon Trot was just too much. It was overload noise level. So those sound effects are definitely used quite a bit, and I'm sure it's the same in Tooie, and if not the same in Nuts and Bolts. And Grunty's Revenge, I don't really recall too much because it's a bit more limited in scope. So some kind of get a little old over time.
Yeah. The one thing I wanted to call attention to with the soundtrack specifically, outside of just the music, is how it is used. Like the most unique thing about Banjo-Kazooie to me is that there are variations of each of the songs, or maybe not each of the songs, but a lot of the songs in the game depending on what you are doing in the game. Like it still is just so, and especially for its time. Like I cannot think of another game out there that where like if you dive underwater, it's going to make the music in the background sound submerged like you are going underwater. And that's a different, like the transition between those is so seamless, but it is a different style of track depending on what is going on. And I don't know how exactly he did that, or if that's just like a filter that they put that through or something like that, or if he'd straight up re-recorded it to sound a certain way like that. I mean, obviously I know these answers are surely on the internet that you can go find, but that's taking it one step further that a lot of games I can't ever think of have done. So like the going underwater, running around Gruntilda's lair is another great example of this, where Gruntilda's lair has a specific theme, but they constantly change it depending on where you're going. Like if you're on the lead up to Mad Monster Mansion, it's going to start to sound a little bit more spooky. Or if you're heading towards Gobi's Valley, it's going to sound more Egyptian-y or desert-like or whatever. Like the overworld theme of Gruntilda's lair changes depending on where you are at in her lair. And I think that's so just, again, I cannot think of other games that really have done that. Especially games of this style. So it's just, it all these years later, that stands out to me as like one of the most impressive things about this game. And just shows the amount of care and attention that they put into the soundtrack specifically and the sound design.
Very quick Googling,
Yes.
and ultimately landing on a Reddit thread. So you know this is 100% true. But it does sound at least logical to me. As far as the underwater tracks and stuff, they are separate instrument tracks that are playing the same song at the same time, just at 0 volume, and then they become unmuted when you go in the water.
So it's just the sliders basically change.
So it's just as soon as you're in water, it flips, but the songs were playing at the same time, so they're in the same location. That's how. Again,
makes sense.
Is this really how it works? I don't know, but at least it makes sense.
That would make sense, yeah.
Yeah. Who knows how video games really work?
Not us.
Definitely not us. Was there anything else you wanted to touch on?
No, I mean, again, I feel like as far as the soundtrack goes, we really talked about a lot of the tracks that I think we specifically liked and stuff with Michael. Yeah, I just felt bad that we didn't call attention to some of those intricacies of the sound design and what this game does. Yeah, like I said, I mean, to this day, can you think of any other games even in 2022 that are doing anything like what this game was doing almost 25 years ago with how it was mixing the music and stuff like that? Like, it just still to this day is very, very impressive to me.
The only other ones I can think of are games that have followed in Rare's footsteps. Things like modern Donkey Kong Country games, which is not even Rare, or I haven't played it. You could tell me. I'm sure Yooka-Laylee does it.
Yeah, I think Yooka-Laylee does do it.
So they're games that have, I'm sure A Hat in Time probably does something similar. So games that have followed in their footsteps, but
it's games that are trying to emulate Banjo to a certain degree. Is the
and thing. That is a part of those games in spirit, and I do appreciate it when that happens. So I think that actually truly wraps it up now. So thank you all for listening to this little extended conversation about Banjo and Kazooie. And we look forward to sharing our next episode with you about nuts and bolts. Chapter Select is a Max Frequency production. This episode was research produced and edited by me, Max Roberts. Season 3 is hosted by Logan Moore and myself. Season 3 is all about Banjo-Kazooie. For more on the season, go to chapterselect.com/season 3. Follow the show at Chapter Select and check out previous seasons at chapterselect.com.